Hi guys, Andy here. I've been using my Samsung Gear Live Android Wear watch for some time now. Sorry I've been a bit slow with the review, lots of things going on. But finally I thought, right, best I get down to telling you what I think of the device. So without further ado, let's crack on. So let's start with the design. That's the main reason I chose the Samsung over the LG. I think it's a much more stylish, sleek looking design, and from what I've heard it fits better on the wrist than the LG. The LG is quite blocky and it doesn't really wrap around the wrist like the Samsung does. Only what I've heard, not what I've experienced. I've not tried the LG. It's 59 grams in weight and it's less than 9 millimeters. Again, the LG is 9.95, so there's an extra, it's only an extra millimeter, but there we go. There are reports, so the design for the charger, obviously micro USB plugs in there, and then the charger just clips on the back. Now there is a lip just here for you to kind of pull it off, and I've not had any problems, and I can't imagine having problems, but I've heard that that little clip bit has pulled away part of the plastic on the actual watch there, meaning that it doesn't hold on properly and you need, I don't know, elastic bands or putting things on top to hold it into the charger properly. Again, it seems, as long as you're doing it like that, I can't see how that would happen, but apparently it has. If we move on to the hardware of the device, the screen itself is a 1.63 inch 320 by 320 Super AMOLED screen. That's 278 pixels per inch, which I think is plenty good enough. Where you can see the pixels and the colours, seems very vibrant. Struggles a little bit in bright sunlight, but I can't say there's ever been, and it's been pretty bright the last few weeks, I can't say there's ever been a time where I've struggled to read it. Well, no, maybe I've struggled, but I have been able to. I've had to kind of like maybe just double check or wake the screen up properly just so that I can see. There is a shortcut to get to things by holding the power, so let's wake it up. Hold the power, we get straight to the settings menu, and the first option is adjust brightness, and we can change that around. We'll put it on a low one actually just while I'm filming. It often looks a bit better. Always on screen. Some people worry that the screen's always on. I don't mind, it's fine. The battery lasts me a day with the screen always on. We can make it sleep. It sleeps after 5 seconds anyway, but we can make it sleep by just covering it like that, and it will just stay in that kind of black background with just the white numbers until, in theory, I don't know if I'll be able to simulate it. There you go. And it's generally worked pretty well. Anytime I lift my wrist up or my hand up, it does turn the screen on very well. As you can see, after 5 seconds it goes back to sleep mode. Now, one problem I have had while we're talking about that is when either, so I've worn this to the gym and I have my lifting gloves, or when I'm on the motorbike and I have my biker jacket on, that seems to activate the screen, either in the gloves or the jacket. My shirt that I wear for work doesn't, but the jackets do, and that's very annoying. One of the things for me when I'm on the bike, I would love to be able to just pull back and stop or skip to the next track, but unfortunately, it keeps stopping the music things as I'm riding, and it's made it quite a pain in the backside, to be honest. Now you'll see a notification came in. Then it was an email. I've got it set so that when the screen's off, you don't see the notifications. If I tap it, hopefully, oh, that didn't work. There we go, and there's the notification is back. It's from eBuyer. In the notification, we scroll. We can delete that straight away. We can reply, or we can open it on the phone. When we reply to something, it basically goes into voice mode. This is just a test of the voice recognition on my new watch. Hopefully I'll manage to cancel this before it actually sends. So I tap cancel. You see how quick that was moving? I don't know if you saw. Now at the same point you're sort of saying okay, and I have sent a text message by mistake thinking, yeah, I do want to cancel it. Oh, I did get that wrong, but before the Slee Suns, I don't know what that bit was. And you have to tap cancel again not to send it. So I have been out and about walking around town, and I've replied to a text message using just voice to the watch. If it did get it wrong, you cancel and you just do it again. But I think the voice recognition's got very good these days, and actually probably 60 or 70% of the time it's recognised it well enough. If it's just you have to obviously speak very clearly, and you want to know what you're going to say. You don't want to start it up and then be going, yeah, that sounds okay, shall we say Thursday? It's not going to work so well because it's going to get all these weird things confusing it. But generally the voice recognition does work. Another shortcut you can use, by the way, hold your thumb down on the screen to be able to change the background. Anyway, let's come back. I was talking about the hardware. So I've mentioned the screen, 278 pixels per inch, which is pretty high res really. It's got a 1.2 gigahertz CPU underneath there, which again is a pretty high spec. 1.2, you think back, I don't know, 3 years ago, we didn't even have that in your phone, let alone in your watch. It's got 4 gig of storage and half a gig of RAM, which I've not had any issues with at this point. I mean, there aren't a huge amount of apps to install on it. Well, to install on your phone to push to the watch. It has a built-in accelerator, digital compass, gyroscope and heart rate monitor. The last of those being unique to a Samsung. I'm not entirely sure how useful it is. It does work, but only really if you're not sweating and you're not, if I'm in the gym, if I'm cycling on the bike, things like that, it just won't work. It won't take it. It either just takes forever and ever doesn't do anything, or it says, sorry, you can't take your heart rate. So I wouldn't necessarily think to buy this watch if you're a fitness buff and it's going to help you in that respect. If we move on to software, so obviously it's Android Wear. It's the early days of Android Wear, and I would say there's probably less than 100 apps still that use it. There are a few useful ones. So there's a, for example, on my launcher. Hopefully, there we go. Look, I can slide in from the side and I get access to all of my apps, which is kind of useful. I do like that rather than having to tap, scroll all the way to the bottom, start, and then you've got your options there. You just slide in from the top. We see things like the compass. Oh, I don't know if I can do that while we're on camera. Let's see. Yeah, that's about right, because that would be north up that way. There's a couple of times I have used this just to check which direction I'm going, which is kind of cool. You saw a glimpse there of Google Keep, which again is another app that does work. So this is my shopping list, look, and you can just tick and untick things. And if you want to add Coca-Cola, I'm not sure where that's. There it is. Look, Coca-Cola. There's other lists, things to do today and stuff like that. Whoopsie. As you can see, it's not perfect. Oh, especially not when I'm got other apps that are interfering with base functions. Right, where was I? So yeah, it's still very early days. As I've mentioned, you install the apps on your phone, and then if I show you real quick. Now, I'm not a fan of persistent notifications, so this one annoys me a little bit. I don't think there's a way to turn it off. Please let me know if there is. We get to browse compatible apps. Always using Play Store, thank you. So actually, there's a few more have appeared. Oh, Trello's now. I didn't realise Trello was Android Wear compatible. So we get to see a few of them here that are compatible. Still not a huge amount, and there are actually lots more that you'll find on the store that don't show up here. I'm not sure what they have to do to show up here. If we go to the settings on the phone, mute app notifications, screen always on, so again we can turn that off from within here. Hide cars on dim screen, always hide, or we can have them being always shown. Silence connected phone, so you can have it so that only stuff comes through the watch, not through the phone at the same time. And then resync apps look, and basically any app you've installed, it syncs and it pushes any kind of hooks or whatever it uses into the watch. So I'd want to do, like, even if an app's not necessarily Wear compatible, if it's got a good rich notification, it automatically works quite well on the phone, because you'll get, if you those notifications where you get a nice little picture and then there's some operations, you'll get the picture as the background and the notification, and I think there's some operations you can do. So it's quite clever in that respect. The battery, probably one of my bigger concerns when I bought this, because the Samsung is only a 300 milliamp hour battery, the LG is a 400. And that worried me a little bit, but to be fair, most days when I go to bed and I put it back on charge, there's still about 50 or 60% left. If we look now, so if I pull down, so that's 90%. I unplugged it probably around 6 or 7, so we've been going 4 or 5 hours, it's gone 10%. There's a mute thing, by pulling that down you see a little mute notification appears. So yeah, actually the battery's been fine, that's not been an issue. I do hear people, they forget to charge it overnight, and therefore obviously they're saying the battery's not good enough, but then my phone wouldn't last if I didn't charge it overnight either. Do I say that battery's not good enough? No, I just remember to charge it each night. So I hear other people saying as well, oh, I'm not interested unless it's got its own GPS. Now, I don't know if you've ever used your phone to sat-nav when it's not been connected to a charger in your car. It rips through the battery. I cannot imagine what it would do to a watch. If you had GPS and it was actually using it to track you, if you're out on a run, your battery, honestly, I think would only last about 20 minutes. I mean, that's just not a good idea. They have to, physically there is not the space for more than about 300 or 400 milliamp hours. Therefore, you have to adapt the watch to work with what you have, which is a 300 milliamp hour battery. You would not, why would you put GPS into it? Ridiculous. These people are just, I don't know, until we get solar panels perhaps that go on the watch and you can be out running and it's charging itself, or it's kinetically, I don't know, but then you might have a watch about this sort of size. So yeah, I just think some people are basically a little bit unrealistic on their expectations. Anyway, the other weird thing that I've noticed is that it only charges from a charger with very low sort of, what's the word, ampage. So I have one that when I plugged it into my phone and I ran the app that tells me how many amps is coming in, it was about 400 milliamps coming in, or milliamp hours, or whatever it is, and that charged the watch just fine. When I plugged in like a 1 amp or a 2 amp, and I come back to it, and this was I learned the hard way, because I had it plugged in overnight, and it was actually one of my mobile batteries, and that was kicking out obviously 2 milliamps, and I woke up in the morning and the phone was basically dead because it just didn't take any of the charge. I haven't read anything about that, I haven't seen anything about that. I'm not quite sure how you know which chargers are good for it and which aren't, other than trial and error. So just be aware of that. If you're trying a different charger for the first time, check 10 minutes later that it is actually charging. Check that the battery is actually going up. Obviously they use Bluetooth LE, low energy, means I don't really notice any loss of battery by having my phone always connected to the watch. Yeah, it still lasts a good day without any problems. Maybe there's 5 or 10% difference, but over a 15-hour day, that's pretty minimal really. Hackability of the watch, pretty limited at this point. I have seen talk of a custom recovery. I've not seen any need to try and install it, so I've just made do with what we have. There are some apps that let you change bits and pieces, like you saw that slide in that. So we'll wait and see. Perhaps they'll become more hackable in time, but you hope that Google themselves will provide what we need rather than it being hacked. So what's my conclusion? What are my thoughts overall on the Samsung Gear Live? It's certainly not a necessity. There's no need for regular Joe to go out and buy an Android Wear watch. Having said that, now I use it. I think I would miss it when I'm not wearing it. There are times when I do miss it. You get a notification. It's surprising how much easier it is just to lift your wrist up to see what it was, rather than either getting your phone out of its case or out of your pocket. I know that sounds like super lazy, but it's just a fact of life. If you can just do it really simply and you're happy, rather than turn it on, put it back away again. Obviously the shorter, easier version is preferable, surely. So it is something you kind of get used to, and it is very useful. Also, surprised how people have noticed, oh, is that the Google Watch? And I and I give them a quick demo. But at the same time, the voice commands do actually work, I think, better than you would imagine. And there are times, so if I want to navigate home, for example, it's actually quicker for me just to talk to my watch and say, okay, Google, navigate home, rather than open up maps, navigate, select home. Yeah, that's the right route, because it basically does everything automatically. You know, literally, you tell it, okay, it just goes through the whole process, and before you know it, your phone itself is in navigation mode. So that's easier. Also, we were working out the NFL coming to Wembley. We've got a friend coming down, and I was asked, oh, when is the Dolphins Raiders game? So I thought, okay, then let's try it. Okay, Google, when do the Dolphins play the Raiders? And I had no idea. Oh, look at that. Typically it fails when the pressure's on. When do the Raiders... Okay, Google, when do the Raiders play the Dolphins? And there you go, it gives the date and the time. I was quite impressed, because I was driving in a car doing about 50 or 60 miles an hour, so there's a reasonable bit of background noise. I just lifted it up to my mouth and asked it, and sure enough, there's the answer. I would not, especially when driving, would have been able to start fiddling with my phone, checking my calendar, or going to NFL.com or anything like that. I thought that was quite impressive, and you know, that was a practical use. That was handy. Basically, it wasn't just a sort of a gimmick. Oh, that's fun, like when you ask it to take your heart rate or other things like that. It was, you know, I asked the question, it gave me the answer. So I was quite impressed by that. Having said that, it does need more support from more apps, especially voice controlled. Would be great if you can ask it to do more things. It just goes and does them, but I'm sure that will come in time. So one annoyance is that I can't just swap between devices. My Note 3 is my main device, but I do use the Nexus 5, for example, if I'm going to the gym. But I can't just swap from the Note 3 to the Nexus 5 on the watch. I have to literally factory reset the watch and pair it up again with the new device. To me, that's quite annoying. To most, that's probably not an issue. You've got one phone, you only need to connect to the one phone. No problem at all. But for me, especially when I'm reviewing different phones, I kind of want to be able to move around. Now, to be fair, there's no real loss when if I'm going to just factory reset it and connect it to the phone, because it's the apps that get pushed from the phone to the watch, not the no information is stored on the watch itself. So in some respects, that doesn't matter. But obviously, I get a history of, for example, my how's the best way for me to get to it? Here we go. Show me my steps. I could have asked it. So I get a history of how many steps I've taken over the last whatever days. Obviously, for factory reset, that's gone. It doesn't seem to sync anywhere at the minute. I think Google is working on its, whatever it's called, it's Google Fit, but at the minute it doesn't sync, it doesn't store. So, all in all, I really like the device. I think the screen's great, the design's great. It's not particularly heavy, it doesn't feel too clunky, it doesn't look too odd. It does have some good practical uses, especially just being able to check notifications very easily. But also, if you don't mind talking to your wrist, then it will actually be able to answer some questions for you quite handily. So all in all, I really like it. Is it worth £170? I don't know, maybe to the sort of gadgety, nerdy types it perhaps is, like me. Otherwise, maybe you want to wait. Also, I know the Moto 360 is on the horizon, and people are just losing their mind over how it's gorgeous, it's amazing. Actually, I think it looks quite big and clunky. We'll wait and see, obviously, what it comes out as. And at the same time, I'm not sure. Round is great for a watch face with hands, but how is it for receiving, reading text messages and emails? It's a round face. Can you imagine having a round screen on your phone? Surely it'd be really quite odd. And actually, there's a lot of wasted space, because whatever you receive has got to be kind of in a box almost. So I don't know. Let's wait and see. People are getting very carried away with it. I'm not entirely sure it's going to be that great. Let's wait and see, though. So all in all, yep, I really like the Samsung Gear Live. I'm quite happy with it. I'll be keeping it and obviously using it as my main watch. I'll let you decide from this video if it's for you. My name's Andy. I'll catch you all again soon.